On Dorian, you can create a relationship system without any coding. This means that you can allow your fans to grow their relationship with their favorite character by collecting points and unlock special scenes along the way based on how well their connection is progressing. Not only is this going to be very exciting for your fans, who can now find secret scenes hidden in your game, but it's going to make them a lot more likely to support you. If the premium content you make only for your patrons is going to then allow them to unlock additional spicy scenes in the game, they're gonna be a lot happier to donate hearts to unlock this content. Plus, on Dorian, you're going to be able to set up really elaborate relationship systems similar to what you can see in games like Baldur's Gate 3 without needing the support of a studio or the budget of a AAA game. In this video, you're going to learn how to set up this relationship system and the best practices to introduce this concept to your fans. Before you start building anything, the first step is going to be designing your relationship system. It works best if you understand how progressing relationships will tie back to the plot. Let's look at some examples of games on Dorian that do this particularly well. Do you see how in each of these cases I understand exactly why I need to progress my relationship with the characters? Once you have your concept, you're gonna need to design the likes, dislikes, wants, and needs of your characters. For example, Julian likes an assertive MC who can take charge but doesn't like arrogance. Knowing that, let's see if you can predict which one of these options would make him happy. In one option, MC can praise Julian, in the other, MC can brag about themselves and their own accomplishments. If you got that right, you probably feel pretty good about yourself. And that is the exact feelings that you want to give to your fans. The more they get to know your characters, the better they become at pleasing them. This creates a dopamine loop that keeps them coming back for more. If you need help designing your character's tastes, likes, dislikes, wants, and needs, we have a character chart template that you can use for inspiration. The next step is adding the relationship system to your game. In order to do this, you need to remember once you have registered to Dorian to apply for choice memory access, and after you have done that, you will see memory bank in your game. Think of the memory bank as a magic toolbox you can access from any episode that will help you and help the game keep track of every decision your players make throughout the game. It can track their preferred pronouns, it will track nicknames that they can choose from themselves in the game, it can track relationships or any number variable within the game, as well as key decision that their character makes throughout the story. You get to decide the choices that the game remembers, and once you do that, every time your player makes a choice, the memory bank will remember it for the rest of the game. The only way that the player can change this is by replaying the episode. Now let's try adding a variable. In this case, we're going to use as an example Jess Del Fonte's game Royal Red. In Royal Red, the player needs to build bonds with the love interests to build their own power, similar to vampire thralls. So we're gonna go ahead and name this relationship a bond, and now let's try to build one for the character of Felix. You can pick and customize the visibility of your relationship. This will determine whether or not the player will see when this changes. If your game has a key decision where you get to punch the prince, you may not want the player to know that this is being tracked in the background. This way, when the player runs into the prince again later, the prince will remember that, and this will create a seamless experience for your player. On the other hand, you want your player to always be aware of their relationship status with each one of the characters. So you want to make sure that they can see every time this number goes up or down. You can set visibility for the following areas. Alert. You can have a pop-up every time your relationship changes. HUD, this appears as an icon in the story screen. Panel, this will appear in the panel where the player can see all of their relationship statuses at the same time in the same place. Or summary, this will appear at the end of the game with a star rating based on how well the player has done. When tracking the player's bond with Felix, we know that this is going to be an essential thing for the player to keep in mind throughout the game, so we're going to set visibility for all of these by default. If you're interested in knowing how to set your relationships to be visible only after a certain point in your game, you can read the full guide to learn how to do that. Because Felix's bond will be visible to the player, then we need to also set an icon. This will be a square image that will show the character's face in a very visible and recognizable way. When you have multiple love interests, we really highly recommend that you pick a consistent style for all of these icons so they match each other. You will need to set a display name, which is the name that will will be visible on the panel. You also have text that you can customize, and we recommend you keep this neutral because it will be displayed whether your relationship points go up or down. So something like Felix's status change is pretty neutral, can work whether your character is losing points with Felix or gaining points with Felix. Now you're probably curious to see how you can change the relationship within the game. This is pretty easy. You just need to add a step to remember. You will now see a list of all of the memories that you set up in your memory bank, and you just need to make sure that you set it to went up by, and then you decide the number. Pro tip, make sure you don't forget to add a number here, otherwise you're not going to be able to save your node. And another thing to keep in mind is that what you see in the emulator is just a test. It's not going to look exactly the way it's going to look in the game, so make sure after you publish your game to test it in the app. Now, what if you want your player's score to change the direction the story is taking? This is very simple. You can just add a check node. This is going to allow you to check your player's score. You can also set up some choices so that they are locked based on a requirement. For that, you can use the requirement function. Just make sure that your player understands what is required to unlock that choice. Finally, you'll want to set up your episode summary screen to make sure that you let your player know how they've done throughout the episode. Now, just keep in mind that the engine here will default to 5, 10, and 15. However, we recommend you balance it like this. In general, it is a good idea to keep a document where you track how many points you give in each episode so that you can make sure that you're balancing them out, and at any point you will know exactly how much you're giving. Now you've got your relationship system working. How can you make sure that your fans care about it? That's a great question. The first thing you can do is to make sure that there is a very clear goal that your player needs to achieve. Don't be afraid to break the fourth wall when you do this. Make sure that the player understands what their goal is and what they'll get if they reach it. When you're giving points, make sure that your players understand why they're receiving these points. Your players are going to want to learn about your characters, so make sure that your points make sense and will help your game feel reliable to your players so that your players can trust your relationship system. You can help them by writing lines that make it very clear what the character liked. For example, Julian liked it that you flirted with him. Design special pop-ups that will help the player understand what's going on. We recommend you use pop-ups for these specific things. If you want to know what others are doing or aren't sure where to start, there's a gallery on Dorian Academy that you can check out for inspiration. You can set up your pop-ups by using the character upload feature on Dorian. Just make sure that you format them so that they will appear in the center of the screen. Once you have uploaded your pop-up as a character, you can use the reaction option to have it show up as a pop-up. Remember that relationship points matter only if there is a reason to earn them, so make sure that you set it up very, very early on. Your player should understand why it matters for them to pursue these characters. We recommend having at least one bonus scene in your episode 1. You can also add a lot of very small moments that change based on your relationship status. Your players will notice even if it's just a couple of lines. Make sure that climactic moments in the game change based on your players' relationship scores so that players can understand the importance of their score. Here's an example of a layering approach. In my game, She's All Dead, when you meet the first love interest, Danny, only see their pin on the screen. As you meet the other love interest, you will start seeing their pins as well. Use the episode summary to drive fans to grind to get more points. When balancing the threshold and the episode summary, we recommend using the following rules to balance them out. In general, you want to think of it as players who get 2 stars should have enough points to unlock most bonus scenes, whereas players who consistently get 3 stars should be getting all of the bonus scenes. Now you're ready to build your relationship system and make your fans fall in love with your characters. Don't forget to join our Discord if you want more help, you need to ask questions, or you want to compare notes with other creators on Dorian.